actually. It's a weird year, this one. Weird year for all of us, a hard year. Weird year for us at Solas. We should, by rights, right now be in a field in Errol Park in Perthshire. So that's not happening, though some things are just the same. We've had the traditional Sunday afternoon downpour has just happened, but so we're really sad not to be at the Solas Festival in Perthshire, but we're having a great weekend all the same, a great Solas weekend. As I say, about a dozen or so events. We're near the end. There's a ceilidh to come at 7 o'clock. But one great thing, a silver lining about this particular situation, is that all the events will have been recorded. Find them on YouTube or through our website. And a few particular favourites of mine, I'm being selfish here. One would be a great debate yesterday afternoon about not going back to normal. So with some real stellar contributors around what kind of Scotland do we want after the lockdown. And then a really, really great thing also, a version of Michael Mara's All Will Be Well, sung by the NHS Greater Glasgow choir, community choir, along with Marianne Kennedy, Green Poet, and loads of other stars. Fantastic. I challenge you not to have a lump in your throat or tear in your eye towards the end. So look out for that, All Will Be Well. So we've had a great time. And I just want to say, if you've enjoyed it, do look at our website, and if you'd like to donate to help us have more of these events in the future, that would be great. But even better, come to our festival next June in Perthshire. But I'm speaking in the past tense, but there's still more to come. There's still more treats in store. So right now, I'm going to turn to two gentlemen. Pádraig Ó Tuama is a favourite of the festival, in conversation with a great musician whom we met at Solas in the past, Blue Rose Code. So over to you, Pádraig.
Thanks very much. Thanks, Frank. And thanks to everybody for tuning in. I love the Solas Festival. It's always a joy to be there, and it's a shame it's not happening, but it is fantastic to have the opportunity for us all to be together for this makeshift Solas over this weekend. Thanks to Debs and Fiona and Morrison for all the work that they're doing and doing all the technicalities and bringing all the brilliance of the artists to the forefront. And speaking of artists, I am thrilled to introduce Ross Wilson playing his Blue Rose Code. He's one of Scotland's foremost solo musicians. His albums include The Waters of Leith and Starlit and The Ballads of Peckham Rye, many live albums, and the soon-to-be-released album With Healings of the Deepest Kind. He's regularly featured on BBC and lots of other television stations and radio appearances. He's known for his collaborations with amazing musicians and actors, and his live shows, I've seen loads of them, are a thing of absolute beauty. His music is a balm and a blend of jazz and folk and poetry and emotion, and as a participant you always feel like your own emotions are brought into the whole artistry of him. We met on stage at Solas a couple of years ago, Ross and I, and became friends. And that, as an aside, is a bit of a feature of Solas, I think. The collaborations between artists connecting about art over burgers and the Scottish countryside while you're being bitten alive by small insects. So please give a lovely warm welcome. And Ross, you are so very, very welcome to this conversation about your music and your artistry. It's great to have you here.
Thank you, brother. And you said in your notes we're going to go straight to a song, and I will shortly. Yeah. But it's it's hard. It's challenging for me to sit and listen to that kind of an intro like that, and I'm determined not to slip into interview broadcasting mode. I'm going to try and be as authentic as I can be today. But anyway, I'm going to start off and try and set the tone with a song simply called Sunday. It's been a long time now. I've tried to live like Sunday morning, and trying to be gentle and simple, and trying to be free. Well, it's been a long time now. I've tried to live like Sunday morning, and knowing that tomorrow's coming, and trying to live today. And I know the sun will rise, I know that days they come and go, and but I might be older now, but I still can't get so cold inside. Well, it's been a long time now, I try to live like Sunday morning, and I still see the mad commotion, but I try to stay away. Well, it's been a long time now, I've tried to live like Sunday morning, no, my spirit was so broken. Now we're swimming and I know the sun will rise, I know that days they come and go, and well, I feel that fear subside when I try to see the world through kinder eyes. And everything that I used to run from are the very things that keep me whole, right? And I might be older now, but I still can't get so cold inside. Well, I'm holding on, and hold on to that spark you hide, and hold on to that golden smile, because you know that it won't be long. Well, I'm holding on, and hold on to that spark you hide, because you know that I love you all the while. Oh, and I know that it won't be long, that it's been a long time now. I've tried to live like Sunday morning, and trying to be gentle and simple, and trying to be free.
That's beautiful. Thanks, Ross.
Thank you, brother.
I have another question that's actually not one I was thinking of, but I'm struck by your kind of self-depreciation and the awkwardness of being introduced by somebody that knows you. What is it in artists, I think, that not all, but certainly you're an artist like this, where on the one hand you perform and you write stuff for public consumption, and at the same time there can be maybe a shyness or an awkwardness about the attention that comes from that. I think it comes from great humility in you, but I'm curious how you describe what that is.
You know, a dear friend of mine would say anyone that would describe themselves as having humility probably doesn't have it. And I, you know, what I'd also say is that my experience is that perhaps there isn't so much awkwardness. Or maybe there is in other artists. I can only speak for myself, and for myself, for a good few years now, I've been listening. Sometimes I listen back to interviews of myself, and I think, who's that guy? You know, and it's, what is it about me that precludes me from putting who I am across in an interview? And so it's good to name it just at the top, because I want to tell you about me. I want to tell you about my music. I don't want to have to take cover behind what I think you're going to be interested in, or who I think you're going to want to talk to. And lockdown has been a lot about that for me, actually.
Like whenever I listen to your work and I read along your lyrics or I listen to your lyrics, I'm always struck by place. I associate you as an artist of place and as a lyricist and poet almost of place. There's songs about Edinburgh, there's songs about the west coast of Ireland, there's songs about London, there's songs about so many different places, and particularly England and Scotland. I associate you with that, and I know you've moved back and forth across the border, and you've moved 19 times in 20 years. So where are you now? What's your place now? And what's place meaning to you at the moment?
So I'm living in a little kind of outlier from Liverpool called Crosby. People from Crosby would tell you that they're from Liverpool. People from Liverpool would say otherwise. But you can watch the boats go in and out into Liverpool dock. And I ended up here because I wanted to be by the sea. I have a beautiful little daughter whom I co-parent. I have her half the time, and she lives in Manchester for half the time with her mother. And I just wanted to come back to the sea. And it's funny because my album, my last record, The Water of Leith, is a special reference to a special body of water, that runs from the Pentlands through my hometown. And it's famous more so nowadays for the Anthony Gormley installation. And unbeknownst to me, moving to Crosby is also famous for an Anthony Gormley installation called Another Place, quite appropriately. And it's 250 Anthony Gormleys standing at various places on the beach as the tide comes in. I mean, it's quite spectacular. But I've been lucky to be renting a nice place with a big garden during lockdown. So I haven't. Things have been quite easy for me in that regard. I see a lot of friends struggling in tiny flats with kids, and it's given me the space to go in, and reflect.
Yeah. And that's the interesting thing for me, is that so much of your art is about place, but then you use place as a way for that very thing you just talked about, going in and reflecting. That there is a way within which you're in conversation with the places you're part of. Like in one of your songs, Edina, you're asking forgiveness from a city. And so there's this conversation internally as well as this conversation with a location. It seems to me that for you, there's always two conversations going on: the conversation with self, and then that self in conversation with place, and then everything that happens from there.
Yeah, and that's interesting. That song was a big amend, really. I ran away from Edinburgh with the wrong idea, and although I had the wrong idea about the city, by extension from what you're saying, really I had the wrong idea about myself. And it took me that song was 3 verses and 3 choruses of an apology to Edinburgh and to the people that I love, my friends and family, with whom I kind of, well, I guess I'm learning that I absented myself from their lives. And I guess it speaks to its own. My constant moving speaks volumes, really, about where my head's been at. Naming places and songs, for me, it works. I mean, it's a practical thing because it helps. It's almost like it hooks people in who visit the places that I'm talking about. It allows people to put their own memory, their own stamp on a song. But for me, everything's a jumble, really. A lot of the last two decades. If you ask me to put names and dates on places, perhaps I couldn't, unless I go to my songs.
Yeah, your songs are that kind of locator. And there's an idea in writing that there's only two stories in the world. A person goes on a journey or a stranger comes to town. And it seems like you've inhabited both of those by being the person going on a journey and then by being the stranger coming to town. And I think your art is so filled with that. I know we're going to be hearing some old songs and some new songs from the new album as well, but sure, lashes into another song there if you've got one for us.
I sure will. Sure will. This is from the new record, and it's called Love a Little. There's a corner of a light in my garden, and I feel it shining through from another time of year. And it makes me feel so glad my heart's still beating to know that I got you, know that I got you, know that I got you, babe. I wanna thank you for giving me the chance to love again. So I know that it's my gift if I choose to walk on the right side of the road. And I know sometimes I still can't find me the light of day. It's only gonna be my faith, only gonna be my faith, only gonna be my faith that'll keep me clean and sober for another day. I know that there are dark days when the weight is on your shoulder. Love a little harder. If you love a little harder, don't you give me a hold me in the dark nights when your fears are only run you. Oh, love a little harder. Well, love a little harder. Don't you give me a ring. I wanna thank you for giving me the chance to love again. Sing a love song from the west, from Dublin to Liverpool. Hear those surefire redemptive verses from shore to shore to shore to shore. God bless that angel herald in the peace town in Waterloo. See what she can do. See what she can do. See what she can, babe. I wanna thank you for giving me the chance to love again. I know that there are dark days when the weight is on your shoulder. Oh, love a little harder. Well, love a little harder. Don't you give me a hold me in the dark nights when your fears I only run you. Well, love a little harder. Oh, love a little harder. Don't you give me a babe. I wanna thank you for giving me the chance to love again. Whoa, da 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 ha, yeah. Babe, I wanna thank you for giving me the chance to love again. Oh, da 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 ha, babe, I wanna thank you. Well, babe, I wanna thank you.
Thanks very much, Ross. I'd like to say that that's one of the only songs I've ever seen you play where I actually recognize the chords that you're playing. I've played the guitar for 30 years, and I would like to say that I saw a G, a C, and a D, and an E. Even I saw an E minor inside there in those shapes. So you're such a consummate guitarist. Can you tell us a bit about the new album, with Healings of the Deepest Kind? That's one of the songs from it.
So I think it's my best record. I think you would expect me to say that, you know. But despite that, it's true. It's been 3 years since The Water of Leaf came out, and in that time, I've become a father. You know, I moved to Scotland. I moved back to England, to Manchester, and then to Liverpool now. My daughter's mother and I, we met each other, and she fell pregnant unexpectedly, and we decided to give it a try. We didn't really know each other, and sadly, it didn't work out. And there was a lot at the time where that relationship was breaking down. I was also on a big tour with an international band. We were doing support for them, playing in front of thousands of people every night, and there was just a lot of pressure, a lot of travel, and it really broke me. I became really unwell. My kind of my mental and spiritual hygiene was at an all-time low, and I had been through similar troubles in the past, but I turned to music to get me through that. Music had always been a catharsis for me. It always allowed me to process things where perhaps I still struggle to process things verbally. But it wasn't working. My music was taking me to places where I was putting myself up for perceived judgment every night, in front of people who didn't know me, and I found the experience very brutal, and I was left feeling really unwell. And I had a handful of songs, and I went into the studio, and things just got worse for me. Actually, I had been in recovery for years, and I ended up picking up drink again, and I think it was just the music was too close for me. It opened a way into my heart that I didn't know how to deal with, and the only way in the past that I'd been able to deal with such overwhelming emotions was to pick up a drink. And I spent a week and a half and thousands of pounds in the studio, and came out much worse for it, and that was entirely my responsibility. So I decided that I had to stop playing and step away. I listened to the kind of studio demos that I had. I listened to the fruits of what we'd done in the studio, and I just wasn't happy with it. But my perspective was skewed. It was totally jaundiced by what was going on in my life. Fast forward, maybe about 6 months, and I was living in this not very nice place in an estate in Manchester. When I wasn't looking after my daughter, I was really either sleeping or I was driving to a gig. And I was depressed. I was really clinically depressed. After an intervention with a couple of friends who picked me up, and it really saved my life. They took me down to a rehab in Bournemouth, and I started again. I got myself back together and looked. I had to just dust myself down, Pádraig. That's the truth. I have a beautiful daughter. It's Father's Day today, and I had
I'm struck by the devastation, really, of that. The thing that you turned to for healing before, the music, the performance of that, maybe less so the writing, but the performance of it and the recording of it seemed to not be bringing the consolation that it had previously.
So the two consequences really were, like I say, it was putting me in a situation where I had to, because I can't perform unless I give of myself. I can only give of myself when I do that. I think anything less than that is a cheating of the audience. And my experience is that because I give of myself when I perform, it engenders a bit of a communion, like a kind of spiritual communion with the audience. It's something that we do together. But furthermore, because of what was going on in the background in my life, I was not able to write about it because the stories weren't just mine to tell, and I felt that almost to process it by writing about it would be disloyal, or it would also bring trouble to me. So my only real means of communication that I've had since I was a teenager has been my writing. It's the only thing that I've been able to work through my life with was gone. It's gone, and it brought terrible consequences for me. But I started again in Bournemouth and came back, and I moved to the seaside, which I take great comfort in. And my life is
by the line, yeah. I'm struck by, you speak about spiritual and mental hygiene, and then you're talking about place as well on the seaside and the practices of fatherhood and spiritual practices. Those seem to be kind of muscles that you practice. None of those things come easily, but they, with time and with attention toward those things, it does sound like you've been able to find a recalibration of the self,
sure.
And then that great generosity too as an artist.
This is very true. I had a real kind of epoch-making moment where I discovered this research by these two American doctors. I can't remember the names, but it's championed by this amazing organisation in Scotland called ACES Scotland, it's about adults with adverse childhood experiences. And it really explained to me a lot of what I drank on and what was going on in my life. And the truth is that I've got, wherever you go, there you are, right? Wherever I go, I bring a whole bag of stuff with me. And if I I like your use of the word practice. Practice is really important for me, and I practice my music a lot less than I practice my spirituality, because I have to work hard at that stuff. I have a bit of meditation I do in the morning, and a bit of prayer, and I just have to watch myself. I have to watch the way that I conduct myself in the day, because it affects me in a way that it doesn't affect other people, it seems.
You and I have never spoken about faith. I don't think in the conversations. I think there's a kind of a spirituality and a soulfulness that I feel in your work, and that we've kind of spoken about those things, but we've never spoken particularly about faith. Did you grow up in a religious context, or?
This is funny, man, because I feel like I've tried to broach the subject with you a couple of times, and you've been resistant.
I'm a reluctant theologian.
You are. And you brought me all the way to Corrymeela when you were working there, and again that was a spiritual experience. Where, for me, it's easy for me to believe. It's essential for me to believe in a power greater than myself. It's my own conception, but it's easy for me to feel that God is just an English language word for things that I can't explain, but I can feel, and I love the stories. I'm a big fan of the stories, but I wasn't. My gran sent me off to Sunday school, Church of Scotland Sunday school, because she felt like it was the right thing to do, and probably because she wanted a bit of peace and quiet, But I didn't have a God to lose growing up,
Huh. Fascinating.
But with that in mind, I'm going to play you a song actually, because my friend.
Right.
Sorry, this is your show. I'm just commandeering it.
No, I was going to move us on. I was going to practice a little bit of spirituality, though, by forgiving you in public for stealing one of my lines for the title of your new album.
I ought to have brought that up.
So I forgive you.
When I was, so there are books that I have in my life that people have sent me, multiple copies of, one of which was a book called The Four Agreements, and I can't remember the name of the author now, but there's, in the whole preamble he talks about the Toltec wisdom's conception of God, and it really challenged my own experience. Anyway, it's called Starlight. We all have come from starlight. We all return to starlight. We all have come from starlight. We all return. In the springtime, in the cold, the sun rushes through our know. There is a place my wandering soul will go. We all have come from starlight. We all return to starlight. We all have come from starlight. We all return, you know. Leave the city in the night, past the streets and the neon lights. If you can look upward, well, you know you can see inside. My heart wide open with a rolling ocean. This world is not just what you see, it's what you feel. With a soul devotion and a raw emotion. This world is not just what you see, it's what you feel. And the end world is just a place you wanna be. It's the way you want your world to be. And how can you say that you'll never know when this world is all so beautiful? A constellation, a crucible of faith and love and sex and hope. So don't tell me that you'll never know. My heart wide open with a rolling ocean. This world is not just what you see, it's what you feel. With a soul devotion and a raw emotion. This world is not just what you see, it's what you feel. With a raw emotion and a soul devotion. This world is not just what you see, it's what you feel. My heart wide open, soul. This world is not just what you see. In the end, the world is just a place you wanna be. Do you know? Well, the end, the world is just a place you wanna be. It's the way you want your world to be. Oh, it's the love. Oh, it's the love. It's the love that's in our soul.
Beautiful stuff. Thanks very much, Ross. I wanted to ask you about healing. I mean, you use that title in the album, but when I saw that title, I did find myself thinking about how healing, I found lots of your music. You know, sometimes it's very confessional. The speaker in your poem is asking forgiveness from a person or from a place, or other times it's telling the truth about that is. And all of these speakers come across in the lyrics of your songs. But there is always that kind of underlying sense of it being held together in melody and harmony that feels, I'm going to use a theological word, it feels sacramental. It does feel like there's something holy in the way that you bring vulnerability to the lyrics of your work, and then the melodies that they're held together in. What is healing for you in this?
Oh, my brother, you're going to make me cry. I think I would like, at this moment, if you don't mind, for you to read your poem. How about that? How do you work that into the schedule?
Sure.
Because let me introduce the poem for you, Pádraig. So I met Pádraig at Corey. Well, we met at Solas, and then he brought me to Corrymeela, and I left Corrymeela with it was an extraordinary place in the north of Ireland. If you don't know, you must go. And the bag of Pádraig's books, and I felt moved to incorporate some of your work in the next record. I didn't know it, and I contacted you a year and a half ago, perhaps, about working on something, doing some sort of collab. And I was on your website and reading through your stuff, and it's the there's something about the incantation as well as the words in this that just I found to be really striking and poignant, and the title of the album came last, but it came inspired by your beautiful poem. So please read on, John.
Sure. I wrote this poem actually during a time when there wasn't much healing or consolation. It just occurred to me, I kept on looking around for a prayer or for a poem or for a song that was going to do the work, and I couldn't find one. And I don't know where the idea came from. Desperation, I think, to go, well, just make it up. And so this is where this poem came from. It's called What I Needed to Hear. This is my gift to you, this springtime blooming, this endless moving from life to deeper life. I will be your endlessness, your journey's start and happy welcome home, your never ceasing, always shining moment. Caught up in the wink of eternity, you will be like you have never been before, always knowing. A decade of sunset evenings and the softest morning dawnings to bathe your tender brow with healings of the deepest kind.
Ah, brother. And it seems so perfect. It seems to sum up so perfectly where I was at the beginning of lockdown and what was going on in my life. And it's funny, you almost one almost pays it forward creatively. You're kind of writing for a day that you hope is going to arrive. If we speak it, it's going to come. And what does healing mean for me? Healing means for me feeling like I'm not sticking out like a sore thumb. My ability to kind of swim with the tide and to dovetail with people that I love, and to walk in the world with a sense of adaptation, perhaps just to feel part of. I always felt I continue to battle with not feeling part of something that that's rooted deeply in childhood, and but also something that I'm learning is that with one comes two, and I'm working on accepting that it's progress, not perfection.
Thanks. It's wonderful to hear such a reflection on healing. It's a word I think that is worthwhile thinking through. I think often the original religious inheritance of it can be really complicated because it can often come across like it's miracle or magic. You're speaking about something totally different. You're talking about a way of connectivity and being present to yourself, and by being present to yourself, being present to others. Beautiful. Do you have another song?
Yeah, sure. It's another song, a kind of love song to London, in fact, and it's called London City Lights. Fumbling through the day for a feeling I was creeping around the outside, waiting for a desire to fade. Biting at my nails to keep the thoughts away, trying to deny or pull the pin from my hand grenade at any time. When the evening grows, the dust of sudden impressions on my bed, there's a rise of adrenaline lost in me. And I know that all at once I lost the battle of feeling of a bad myself, you know, this to the light, to the London city light. Out here on the road where you get the feeling that no one is real, with black hands shaking your soul. Holding on for something, hoping for a little change, feeling like a break, just waiting for you if you turn a page. Well, out here in the light, the bricks start thrumming, the buzz above the neon with the flags of flying red, gold and green. They're rising on adrenaline, a feeling of abandoning yourself, you know, that's all I want today. To the light, to the light, to the London city light. Well, pretty little darling, hold me close and promise me that you'll promise me nothing more. Pretty little darling, kiss me free and dance with me like we were kids. Pretty little darling, hold me close, I see the way you move and I know all we really have is this tonight. Their eyes and your adrenaline, a feeling of abandoning yourself, you know that's all I want is to this. To the light, where? To the light, to the London city light. To the light, where? To the light, to the London city light. Oh, we have a dream and we offer no apologies right here in the night. I feel a solidarity I put to you, to your soul. Yeah, we're giving to the night and we make no promises, dancing in the light of the all-night coffee place. I can't wait, I can't wait, I can't wait for you to take me home. Kiss me, so we make this pact just to make this memory. One morning means goodbye, but tonight we celebrate. That's all we need. There are eyes in your adrenaline, a feeling of abandoning myself, you know that's all I want is to this. To the light, oh, to the light, to the London city light. Well, pretty little darling, hold me close and promise me that you'll promise me nothing more. Pretty little darling, kiss me free and dance with me like we were 17. Pretty little darling, hold me close, I see the way you move and I the light, oh, to the light, to the light. Oh, it's the light. Oh, no, it's the light. Where, oh, it's the light. Oh, it's the light.
Magnificent. Thanks very much, Ross. I read an interview that you gave. Actually, I don't know when you gave it. It might have been a while back, where you said that worrying about not writing is like creative kryptonite. And partly I found myself thinking about that line because I know so many people entering into lockdown had this idea to say, here's all the 10 projects I'm going to achieve, and here's the novel I'm going to write, and here's all the things. And for some people, I think that has worked. They have been able to make the time. But for others, because of worry and because of lots of extra work and homeschooling their children or all kinds of other unexpected concerns, as well as the illness of themselves or the family members, they haven't achieved what they thought they should and are perhaps worrying about it. It struck me that your creative process about saying that you write when the art comes rather than thinking that you have to write might have some wisdom for people.
It's only different from me. As soon as I start to sit down and set myself the task of writing something, I switch into something that really doesn't resemble my work. You know, it becomes something other than the music that I write. But this whole, I understand this whole notion of achievement during this time, but I don't think that we can underestimate, and I feel like I don't want to sound trite or cliche, but I don't think we'd underestimate just how challenging it's been for people to be locked down for this amount of time, and I guess they've grasped, clutched, and scrambled for distraction of, let's make myself better in this time, something to take me away from the fact that I can't move. And that's certainly how I felt. And I've heard people say that, people who are alone during lockdown wish they were with people, and people that are with people during lockdown wish they were alone. And I think that that speaks volumes. But what I've loved, what's been transformational for me about lockdown is that, we spend a lot of our lives saying, if I only had the time, I'd do this. And after the kind of second week of abject panic, when all of my gigs were cancelled, once I got out of that, the dust started to settle. And I started to think, well, what do I want to do? Who am I? What do I enjoy? And this might sound like really primary, fundamental stuff for people, but this stuff doesn't come naturally to me. I don't really know who I am unless it's to define myself by who I think you're going to like. I kind of sat down and I realized, well, now I've got all this time and I'm not doing that stuff that I give myself a hard time for not doing. My partner and I, we joke about Ulysses. I want to be the guy that's read Ulysses, and I've had maybe 10 abortive attempts of reading Ulysses. I have 4 different copies. She was back working in London and back up here. And I even Amazoned her another copy of it so we could sit and FaceTime. We got 2 chapters in and we've not done it. And do you know what? I'm maybe never going to be the guy that's going to read Ulysses. And sure, it doesn't mean that I'm not okay.
Yeah.
And that's been really powerful for me. Just getting comfortable with my imperfection. Again, it's so hard to talk about this stuff without sounding like I'm a guest on the Oprah Winfrey Show. But this is big. This is big stuff for me, man. Because I tell you also what is creativity kryptonite for me. I always thought that when I got into the music business, such as it is, I thought it was just about getting wasted all the time. And behaving badly, and you learn very quickly that no one's going to put up with that rubbish anymore. And we're not living in the 60s, so I had to straighten my act out, and it's been a journey just learning to look after myself.
Yeah, I know that you've been developing a deep relationship with the word fallibility during this time too. You were saying that that's become an important word. Is that the same thing?
For sure, man. For sure. I I'm learning to we're learning the how freeing offering an apology is. Because I get excuse me, I get it wrong many times a day, and if I can let that pride go, I can just clear the decks and move on.
Yeah.
But I'm also learning that I feel like I'm in the next. It was interesting hearing Frank talk about what the panel talking about what the future post lockdown is, and what how we don't want to go back to normality. And I guess I can only affect post lockdown through the prism of who I am and how I conduct myself out there in the world. And it's been a while that I've been thinking about doing something a bit more fulfilling outside of music, and I've been looking at in the like I say, all my work's been cancelled, so I've now got the rest of the year off essentially, and I'm lucky that I can cope with that financially. But I want to do some study, look at perhaps using what I'm learning to work with young kids, and just do something outside of singing about me.
You managed a cafe before, didn't you, in London? That was a cafe that provided shelter and accommodation, shelter and employment, and places for people to meet who had otherwise been kind of failed by other structures in society.
Yeah, living in Bethnal Green, I will always have a part of my heart. Living down Sugarloaf Walk and St Margaret's House with the charity. It's an extraordinary place. The cafe, we left a legacy of kind of it's an art space. In fact, have you not been up? Were you not over there performing at the cafe? Did we not talk about this? You did something at the Gallery Cafe in London, didn't you?
Yes, I did actually. Yeah.
That's the very same space.
That's the very place.
I started that music there, and we left a legacy. It's it turns over a tidy profit, which is invested back into the local community, and it does amazing kind of practical poverty work for a whole range of unsexy charities that we'd never heard of.
Brilliant. I looked up your song "Grateful" earlier on, and this isn't a plug to play it if you weren't planning on playing it, but I was struck by how gratitude for you is a practice, and like for the video of it, you'd spliced together little videos that people had sent you in where they were just showing something in their ordinary life that they're grateful for. And there's a couple of lads outside a fish shop, good friends, and other people just in friendship, in love with their kids, by themselves. There's somebody dancing alone on a dance floor. It's magnificent. And gratitude and kind of hashtag grateful is something that you've used on your social media for years. What is it about that that's been so sustaining for you? It's not just a kind of a 30-day retreat for you. It feels like a 30-year practice.
Yeah, and longer, hopefully. It needs to be at the forefront of my thoughts because I can easily step away from the good path. And it's funny you talk about those guys standing outside that chip shop. That was my neighbourhood chippy growing up in Northfield in Edinburgh, and they do the best. They do the best fish and chips in Edinburgh.
Well, I challenge you to that. But anyway, John Long's in Belfast.
Oh, well, next time I'm over, brother. I love your city.
Yeah. There's something about it though that you seem to keep on coming back to gratitude. I hear it as a way within which you elevate the things that are sustaining in your work, especially in this new album. I see it too. I think we're going to move toward the end of having one more song. I've got another couple of short questions for you after that, but let's have one more song from you.
Well, it is going to be Grateful. That was my plan.
Ah, great.
And
I should say that I'd like you to change the lyrics of that. Bit when you say, I know I'm not cool and I know I'm not good looking. Like here, there's half the people watching here going, for God's sake, shut up. So here's your new words. I know I'm kind of cool and I know I'm pretty good looking. There you are. Dash that in. That's your payment for stealing my poetry line.
When I wake in the morning now, will I try to be thankful? You know that I almost died. You know that I almost died from a fire that's in my blood. Now I long to be peaceful, 'cause I've been burning up endlessly. I've been burning up endlessly, and I'll never be cool. I'll never be good looking. I'll never be rich, I know. But Lord, I am grateful. With my eager arms, I will leave it out easy. Oh, I will. I want just to know your touch. I want just to know your love. 'Cause your eyes as black as the night, your smile shining on like a galaxy. And I want just to treat you right, darling. If only you let me. I'll never be cool. I'll never be good looking. Well, but I'll never be rich, I know. Lord, I am grateful. 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 I'll never be cool. Oh, I'll never be good looking. I'll never be rich, I know. I know, I know, I know, I know, I know. But Lord, I am grateful. Solas Festival. I'm grateful.
That's so beautiful. Thanks very much, Ross. I know everybody is moved. Your work does like the unacknowledged instrument in so much of your work is emotion, your own, and then the emotion it brings out in people. It's a beautiful thing. I remember weeping in an airplane once listening to one of your albums and then swearing at you while I was weeping. I'm feeling sorry for the person sitting next to me. Your new album, With Healings of the Deepest Kind, is going to be released on the 17th of July. And will you have streams of that on the socials? So to follow you along, you're on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter for that.
So we've been doing this amazing thing where we have had Zoom concerts. Actually, we've had a couple of Zoom concerts live from my kitchen, where they've been ticketed events, and I found that people have wanted to get involved. They haven't been able to go out on a Saturday night, so they've wanted to make an evening of it, and we've been doing that. But we're going for that kind of writ large on the 18th, because we were supposed. So the album's out on the 17th. On the evening of the 18th, we were supposed to be launching it at the Queen's Hall in Edinburgh. We're supposed to be doing a Union Chapel in London. Clearly, that's not going to happen. So instead, what we're doing is from a safe and social distance. The band are getting together from in a mystery location studio in Scotland, and we're going to play the album in its entirety and some other songs. We might also have a handsome special guest all the way from Belfast, if I can get you to agree your fee. And there are tickets for sale. You know, we've done about 300 tickets so far. You know, just check it out on the socials.
Excellent. Well, I know that Solas and yourselves and everybody else will be sharing that around on the socials, so that's fantastic. Ross, I want to thank you so much for taking the time and putting your heart into this, the way that you do, that for you artistry comes from the heart, and it's a real honour to have a chance to chat to you, and for Solas Festival that you've been there a few times and that you give so much. I want to thank everybody who tuned in as well. Thanks very much for giving us your time. I want to thank Debs and Fiona and Morag, who've been the managers and producers of all of these online events, doing such extraordinary work of the muting and the unmuting and the directing and the keeping everything going and the curating of this, really. And thanks to Frank, the chair, and everybody else involved in Solas as well, who's been doing so much work to bring people a festival at home. And we look forward to seeing you in a field in Scotland in 2021 for the solstice there. Until then, thanks very much, Ross, and thanks very much to everybody.